Good evening and welcome to today's edition of the African Youth in Agriculture Conference 2021. The theme of our conference this year is African Youth in Agriculture, the Panacea to Africa's Development Challenges. We are all witnesses to the overwhelming challenge that the African economies and development faces at the present time, where we are not able to move forward in both technology, food security, and other infrastructural development. We have looked at many ways this is happening and have been thinking of what to do to deal with it. The African Youth in Agriculture Conference 2021 is a child of circumstance. We at the African Town Hall Online Television that brings you this program had thought about getting young Africans to discuss about their personal development through one of our programs called Conversations. When we got in touch with 5 young, upwardly moving Africans and asked them to be guests to the program, each one of them agreed. And then each one of them also wanted to focus their speech on youth in agriculture. What this means is that agriculture has become central to the future development of Africa. When all of them desired to speak on agriculture, we came up with the idea that as a company set up to give voice to the rising generations of Africa, what is best that we do at this time is to give a conference where young Africans who are connected to the agriculture, to farming, will come and share their thoughts with a view to inspiring other young Africans to get involved in agriculture. While preparing this conference, we came upon a talk given by Dr. Tamara Happyface Kaunda in 2018 in Kigali, Rwanda, on youth employment in agriculture, where she made it clear that agriculture is the oxygen by which Africa development will be alive, otherwise it will die. She also said if you wanted to make agriculture attractive to the young people, you need to make it sexy, make credit available, and create other opportunities to improve the situation. In going forward with this conference, we are privileged to have one of Africa's rising generations, a young person dedicated to agriculture and to farming, both academically and practically, to be our keynote speaker at the conference today. It is my pleasure to welcome to the conference to speak to Africa, especially the rising generations of Africa, Mr. Ndifon F. Becha from Cameroon. Mr. Becha, please speak to Africa.
Hello, Africa. Thank you, sir, for accepting me as a participant and as a speaker for this conference organized under this wonderful team, Youth in Agriculture, the Panacea to African Development Challenges. I want to deeply appreciate you and your able team for the great opportunity, this platform where we have this opportunity to share our perspective on issues that are very pertinent and they are affecting the advancement of our continent, our mother Africa. My presentation is titled The Future of African Agricultural Sector on a Crossroad, Imperialism as the Key Threat and the Possible Pathway. An important remark to make is the relevance of the recommendation of Dr. Tamara Happyface cited in the opening keynote address that agriculture is the oxygen for African economy. And also current observations and even future projections have expressed it very clear and very categorical that the emergence and the advancement of African economies is enshrined in the agricultural sector. These are facts, and it is expected that these views would have mobilized the huge African youthful population to engage more into the sector of agriculture, which is the supposed panacea to our development as expressed in the theme of our conference this year. But unfortunately, the youth are disengaging themselves from the sector of agriculture. Today, we have verifiable evidence from numerous studies with valid conclusions that the African agricultural sector is fast losing its glory. The failure in this sector indeed looks very precarious, it looks bleak and without prospect, except otherwise. And therefore, it would mean that this sector which Africa is, hanging on may fail to sustain this anticipated development force to the continent as we do expect. So I see this as a bigger issue to be addressed at the level of the vision and the kind of agenda that has been crafted for the agricultural sector of Africa than just focusing on the helpless youths, many of which are even victims of circumstances, of which I am also one. So, but however, I am not here to have a blind eye on the involvement of our youths, our youthful population in the agricultural sector. It is still a very good thing that we have to encourage and continue to encourage that our youths must come to the central stage to engage in agriculture more massively. But if we must address the challenges that are putting the African agricultural sector at a crossroad, then imperial vision and the agenda that they have put in place must be dismantled. Imperialism is the key threat to the development of the African agricultural sector. We have well noted that this continent is very much endowed with the potential to sustain the development aspiration of the, of the present and future generations to come in the context of agriculture alone. Not until the imperialist powers came to Africa and laid an agenda, they have incubated and hashed that agenda, and they are very much involved in nurturing that agenda, which enables them to reap the profit from the agricultural sector while tactfully killing the sector. Imperialist mission on our continent has not changed, and it will never change. They came to take, and are still here very busy defending this interest. If they could take human beings without mercy, loot our minerals and biological resources with impunity, and are bleeding our societies socially, economically, and politically, then there's nothing they cannot do. They can't stop at that, but making sure that they also hijack and destroy our agricultural sector. The vision, I insist on this vision because the vision of African agricultural sector is in the hands of the imperialist powers. We must take note that he who has the vision and draft an agenda has the power to control the system, the processes, and make the profits. It may shock us to know tonight that the African government, or most of them, have no clear vision for our agricultural sector. That is why the sector is crumbling. And until we have a vision for our agricultural sector, even if all of our youths, the youths of Africa, get involved in agriculture today, the sector will still fail. So, I want to remark that while the imperialist powers who have the vision are doing everything possible to exploit us now as a potential market, acquire the most fertile and rich lands of Africa, replace our indigenous species, sell more chemicals to us, and get rich while we intoxicate our systems and our soils, it will be very embarrassing to also know that if you ask the African leadership, most of our leaders, what vision they have for their country in the perspective of agriculture, say, Mr. President, Mr. Minister, it will be shocking to hear them say, or maybe mention things like, we have a vision to increase the importation of seeds, eggs, maize, chicken. So this is to me like real stupidity. I'm sure if I'm sounding this way, because that is what is killing our sector. You will hear them say they intend to increase the importation of chemicals. Like really? Or some will say their vision is to increase the export of agricultural produce like cocoa, cotton. But you know what? In the most raw form, and that is not helping the young African youth who are finding, or who would have found interest to invest in agriculture. And here I want to say that our leaders, their vision is rather fulfilling the agenda of the imperial forces or imperial powers. So it's not actually a vision. What they have as a vision is a fulfillment of what imperialist agenda, seeks to achieve. And honestly speaking, the imperialist powers are bent to maintain this status quo indefinitely. And that is so dangerous for us, the youths. If Africa had a vision in the sector of agriculture, then why is hunger and malnutrition still increasing, rising in Africa? Why can't we exploit our land to full capacity? Why is it that even right now, Africa, for over 3 decades, is a net importer of the most basic of foodstuff that we are able to produce and even export? Why is it that employment in agriculture is falling rapidly in Africa? Why is the sector still largely subsistence? Where's the vision for modernization? Why can't we control the market forces? Why can't we add value even just 10, 20, 30, 40, not even 50% of what we are producing in Africa and exporting? Why? Why is our cost of production increasing and nothing is being done in that regard? So it means we don't have a vision. We don't have a vision. And sir, a person or a society without a vision will definitely perish. And that is what is really holding us hostage. And therefore, I want to quickly take this moment to highlight some of the areas that I have identified as threats to our sector due to imperialist, in powers. The very first is that they have secured significant control over the trade of most agricultural outputs in Africa. They have fought for trade liberalization. They are dictating the prices. We have to sell our agricultural output. If you should ask the people from Benin, Chad, and other countries in Africa who are or which are very poor, you will get to learn how they were extorted from their cotton world by the imperialist forces. A country like Cameroon, where I come from, it definitely is like we are giving our cocoa cheaply to our imperialist powers because of the way they have fashioned the whole agro business. And this keep farmers and youths, under constant frustration, under stress, under difficulties. So it makes the system not appealing for our able youths to come in. Secondly, I want to point out that the growing African population today is seen by these imperialist forces as a potential market and not as competitors. And as such, they are doing everything possible to adjust the system, the processes, the trade policies, the market forces to favor them and to knock us out. That's the truth. They are working hard to enable us to become, what net importers of basic foodstuffs that we were capable of producing. And I want to say here that if eggs and chicken is not imported from other countries, then the poultry sector in Cameroon will not function. It will collapse. As I speak, currently there is very huge crisis in the poultry sector of Africa because eggs have not been imported. Therefore, people like us who, have invested into the poultry sector, we can go for 3, 4, 5 months, out of production. And you know what that means. And that is a serious problem. And it has been crafted like that because of the imperialist agenda. And as we keep expanding the possibility of importation, that is also how billions and billions of the little money that we have used to support the youth and the sector agriculture, that is how it's going out there to make the imperialist nations rich. So this is a huge frustration and a failure to our sector. And thirdly, I want to point out that, another threat is that they have this agenda of eliminating African indigenous species in the name of what they call high yielding varieties. I'm not against science, yes, but what I want to say here, I'm talking with the evidence of the challenges that we are facing in our economy, in our society today, from this tendency, this trend where African indigenous species are eliminated. And these so-called high-yielding varieties, we all know that it requires the use of more chemicals. It entails that the poor farmers now will need to be buying seeds frequently. In fact, every planting season, they need to buy seed because when you plant the high-yielding varieties, you cannot use those same seeds, for the next planting. And of course, the high-yielding varieties, we are very aware. We have done investigation. They are of reduced quality. They have low quality. And we are also very certain here that the consumption of some of these species have adverse health effects. And they are also very costly in terms of what? Our people who are poor to farm. Because you have to rely on buying chemicals and buying seeds. And at the end, what you even produce, you sell at very horrible prices. So it's not cost effective. And we are of the opinion that our local species, some of them, they are well adapted. They do well, they heal without chemicals being used, and they're very nutritive. We have a right to eat what we're blessed with by God. And in terms of their production, it's very cost effective. So why do we want to borrow and take from our imperialist forces? And another threat I want to point here that is really affecting our sector is that their agenda targets to make the African agricultural sector inorganic. Inorganic. The abuse is suffocating our sector with dangerous chemicals. Much of our output definitely will not meet export standards because they will say it's inorganic. We will now eat more of chemicalized food and get sick. And you know what? At the same time, it means that we will be promoting the pharmaceutical industries of our imperial powers. Inorganic products, everybody knows that they are so cheap. And if our agricultural sector becomes very, very inorganic, then it will mean that we will our ability to generate income from the sector will diminish significantly. So will youth be encouraged to invest in a sector where they cannot make money? Very difficult. And another threat here has to do with the fact that their agenda targets to degrade our soils and make them less productive in the future. Since we are already looked up to as a market, therefore it is of their perspective that our system should not be sustainable. Our soils should not support us in the future. And that's why I would like to say here that the effect of chemicals on soils are well known everywhere. In America, within the European Union, in China, the evidence are everywhere how chemicals have destroyed soils. But they are busy pumping our soils with chemicals having very hazardous substances. Pesticides, which are banned even in the European Union, are exported to Africa. And what does that mean? Is that really, a way of helping our sector? In Kenya, their organic agricultural network had to push hard for the ban of 24 chemicals that were already in their market, and they were very, very dangerous, having carcinogenic toxics. In Morocco, thousands were dying, and they are still dying in many African countries just because of what? Acute pesticide poisoning. Each year, their chemicals are killing our soils, they are killing our people. And this must be regulated. This must be regulated. The effect of chemicals and over reliance of chemicals has a very, very big negative impact in the future. And if they are busy increasing the use of chemicals in our sector, then it means that they have a mission behind that. So this must be regulated. Sir, African agriculture is at a crossroads. The imperialist vision to me is very bad and is wicked. A vision that makes the poor to sell their output at very low prices. A vision that compels the poor farmers to increase their costs of production. A vision that makes us to consume low quality and chemicalized product. A vision that weakens our export and trade. A vision that makes us depend on them for the most basic of things that we can produce, egg, chicken, and the rest. A vision that will make them produce food even in our own soil here in our continent, Africa, and sell to us. Where are we going to? Where are we going to? So this is, to me, the core problem. And if the leadership is confused and is frustrated, how much more of our youth? I'm saying so because I think in my early 20s and now I have heavily invested in agriculture, but sir, it's not easy. So I'm speaking because I have tried to look at, is it really that African youth are not interested in agriculture? I've tried to answer that question, and I am trying to, at this moment, from my findings and my verifications, the main challenge, the main threat to our agriculture is not the youth. It is this imperialist agenda, because they have hijacked the sector and they are out to keep us frustrated permanently. Our misery is increasing, but it makes little or no change. So, uh, it's a very difficult situation. It's a very difficult situation, but agriculture is still what we have to hang on. And that's why at this point, sir, I want to quickly point out that it is not new for us to look at the pathway when it comes to what Africa can do. African leadership, I would like to say that they must, I underline it must, they must wake up. They must wake up. They need to have a vision, at least for once. They need to have a vision for this sector. They need to have a vision for their people and the continent. We are tired of seeing them making good speeches. We are tired of seeing them having good programs on papers borrowed from other continents, but yet we're not seeing result, we're not seeing the change. And therefore, all we need now is a vision and all we need is action from our leadership. Yes. Today, we have many of our youths engaging in the agro sector. Yeah, many youths. They are entrepreneurs in the agricultural sector. They don't feel safe, sir. They are victims. They are victimized. They feel victimized. And everything we call their risks and their cost of production is increasing. I say this with all sanctity. So African leadership must come to our rescue. They cannot continue to pretend to fulfill the agenda of the imperialist powers to our detriment. We want our economies to grow. We want to support our people. We want to alleviate poverty. We want to ensure food self-security. We are willing to do this, but we are not having any reasonable help from our leadership. So, if our leaders really want this sector to be sustainable, if our leaders really want agriculture to remain the panacea, the key to the development of our sector, to the advancement of our continent, then this will be possible. Remember that people always go the way or follow the path that they feel that things will be or life will be better. So we cannot see fire in the sector and you expect people to stay there and burn themselves, even if our leaders are making the best of speeches and making proclamations. So we will quickly say here that our leaders need to come up with a vision. They need to come up with policies, that will favor the rural people, those who are, engaging in the sector at all levels. They need to come up with policies that our sector will begin to have value or, value added. Where are the processing sectors? Where are the roads? Where are the markets? Where are the prices? So, sir, I want to thank you once more. I want to thank the viewers. And I think that we, the youth, we are still very ready. We are still very determined. And we think that it is our responsibility. We have to continue to make sure that we resist, we have the resilience to give a positive lift to this sector. I know we can do it, but we just need help from our leadership. They need to look into our problems. They need to identify these things and see how serious it is affecting us. And if we are doing well as farmers, then our economy will grow definitely. So thank you for this wonderful opportunity that you have given me to air out these few words of mine to our viewers, to the people of this continent, and to the able youths. My youth, we should not give up. We should not give up. We have to advance in agriculture, and that is still our oxygen. That's still the oxygen for the advancement and the development of African economies. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ndifon. It is a pleasure to be in this podium with you to talk about these critical issues that have arisen. Your speech has been very wonderful. It shows that you have knowledge of the industry and what is going on and ideas that we can use. Now, arising from your speech, I would like to ask you, made a number of notes. I would like to ask you a particular question. And the first question I want to ask you is, can you itemize, maybe in a bullet point, itemize some of the things you think the leaders of Africa should be able to do for the African youth in agriculture, or at least to entice or attract the African youth to agriculture? Can you itemize some of the help that African leaders can or have the power to give to the youth of Africa in agriculture to entice them, to attract them to the sector? So let me know if you have an idea of the things you think African leaders should do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this wonderful question. Yes, there is so much that we expect from our leadership. And there are pertinent things that if our leadership engage in, then it can be a very strong impetus for a vibrant takeoff for this sector. Agriculture, if it must be vibrant, leadership has to come up with a vision. That's why I keep talking of vision. Vision. The vision must be there. A vision that we have control over it. A vision that we are able to guide and direct the market forces. We need that vision. A vision that we can set in place milestone to say, okay, from this 2021 to 2025, this is what we want to accomplish in the sector of agriculture, and we take action towards that. And again, agriculture needs financing. Most of our leadership have kept the youths in a state where they are permanently poor. They are without subsidies, they are without sources of finances for a startup. Yes, I have come across many youths graduating from, agricultural institutions without any hope for them to continue to invest in the sector. But if upon graduation, if our leadership were very, very, very serious, they could look for mechanisms and programs through which these youths will have a kind of financial package, will have a kind of, support through subsidies, where where they are able to set small farms for themselves, set small businesses for themselves as a startup. Look at what is our leadership doing in terms of helping Africans in stabilizing our prices. The market situation is too poor. It's too poor. No strong institutions to regulate our prices. No cooperative systems that are there to see if farmers are actually making profit from what they are producing. Farmers are just helpless for themselves. So I want to point out a situation where when I engaged in cocoa production some 10 years back, by then, sachet of certain chemicals that we buy, like what we call Rhodamine and the rest, a sachet was 300 francs CFA. And then cocoa prices, when I engaged, was about 1,500 CFA. But as we speak, that sachet of chemical has increased to something like 700 francs, and the cocoa prices have dropped to like 800 francs. So you see the divergence. You can see the divergence. So no system is put in place to regulate our prices. to see if we are actually engaging in a sector where we should be making some profits. Yes,
Yeah. Now
I have.
let me come in a little
Okay,
bit there.
okay, sir.
Yeah. The 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 African leaders ought to do something for the youth who are getting engaged in agriculture. I agree.
Yes,
But one thing is clear. There's this saying that nobody gives you power. You have to take it. Is there no way that the African youth interested in agriculture, getting involved in agriculture, farming, and other things can start small on their own and then make themselves worthy for additional help?
definitely, definitely. There is just so much that the African youths can do. They are actually, if we are in the sector, it means that we find a reason to engage in the sector even before we are anticipating that the authorities can come to our rescue or support. But I just cited an example, for instance, where for 2, 3 months or so now in Cameroon, because X is not imported, we are out of the market. We are temporarily out of business. So it is not like the youth are not involved. Many are just sitting on the fence. Many are actually involved. But because of the misery, the frustration which they are facing, it makes many of them find it not very interesting or interested in the sector of agriculture. But sir, I must point out that we the youth should not be discouraged. We shouldn't. We shouldn't. Because I am very objective and I know that certainly if we do it massively, if we get involved, things will change. We are a whole driving force. We're a whole driving force. And I don't think that because of the circumstances for the moment, we should stay out of the sector. So it is still a point of encouraging our youth that even before we are hoping that our authorities, the hierarchy can be able to come to our rescue, to our aid in whatever form, there is still a reason for us. There is still that opportunity for us to, find agriculture an interesting sector, very interesting sector. Thank you.
Okay. Um, that that is great. If you mute your this thing a little bit, let me ask you the next question. So the next thing I have here as a question is you mentioned that there's an agenda by the imperialists to degrade the African soil with the preponderance of chemicals that they are producing. Um, these chemicals are produced and given, and farmers use them because they believe they will get high yields. Are there alternatives that a farmer can use in having high yields if they did not have to, without using these chemicals? Are there alternatives to improve the yield of your agricultural products, whether it is animal husbandry, poultry keeping, or plant cropping, vegetables and roots and tubers and all? Are there other ways they can use in increasing their yield without chemicals?
There are certainly, or we have many possibilities through which we can still increase our outputs without necessarily depending on chemicals. And that's the organic farming that we are talking about. And that is the original context of agriculture that Africa has practiced over centuries. Over centuries. And I am very impressed that today non-governmental organizations, most of the people engaging in agriculture are already sensitive of the fact that organic production, depending on you know, you know, local possibilities of enriching our soils and treating our crops is the best way if we must succeed in agriculture and ensure that the sector remain sustainable. But before I conclude on that answer, we have been misled to think that increasing use of chemicals would enable us succeed in agriculture. Perhaps the yields can increase, but let me say this: if our agriculture was to advance because of increased use of chemicals and increasing yields, then why is famine and hunger still, present in our midst? Why is poverty, with the increasing yield, why is poverty, still very high in our midst? Therefore, for us to think that we have to increase the use of chemicals, for us to think that increasing our yield is what will take us to a greater height in agriculture is a misconception in disguise. It's a misconception. It's but true that these chemicals, some of them, I say some of them, but there are many that are not having the standards. They are just there for the sake of the imperialist forces generating income. And these are the chemicals that are affecting our soils and our health. So if we are to embark on organic production, if we are to embark on our local manure, if we are embarked on our natural processes, I am not resisting modernization. I am not. But I am talking of a crazy system that is pushing our sector to doom, all in the name of ensuring high yield. High yield would hardly take Africa anywhere. If high yield was to make Africa and the sector agriculture to advance, we would have gone far further than this. So it's a misconception. So I'm advising African youths, African government, that we should look up to our organic systems of production, be it in animal husbandry, be it in crop production, or whatever form of agriculture. We should, look for ideas. We should embark on research. We should look for possibilities. There are practices, there are possibilities through which we are able to use very common practices, very common possibilities, and we will still have the sustained yield, and we'll be able to use our soils and for the rest of life. So the use of chemicals in the name of high production is is not proper.
Okay, I get the point there, and I think you have made some point that is very serious. I like to refer to both for now and in the future. We can practice. There are practices, natural methods that we can use in doing this. Now, you are a PhD student in natural resources and environmental management. In my mind, this falls within your field. It's in the purview of your area of pursuit in academic studies. Now, are we looking forward to a book that can help Africa, find those ways and means of maximizing the use of our land and increased yield without chemicals? Is that something you are looking at for the future?
We must have something in that direction. We must seek possibilities to come up with ideas that will help our people. We need to document some of these things, and that's why I keep blaming our leadership. I come from a society where, in terms of carrying on studies regarding soils, to know that this soil is best for this soil is best for this. This soil, we can keep it for the next 100, 200 years because that is where we have food to feed our population. This area, because of its status, naturally can be good for settlement. You know what is occurring here? Land that is fertile is the land that is invaded for settlement and other uses. It means agriculture is pushed to frontiers, pushed to marginal areas where that sector will not be vibrant in the future. That is true. And again, we need to help our people through research and other forms of documentation so that practically the local man can know that this my environment is best suited for this crop A and not crop B. Because there's anarchy, there's confusion. People are just doing things haphazardly over space because we have not gone down to the grassroots to direct our people. To direct our people. There are environments that are more suited for yam production. There are environments that are naturally suited for cassava production. There are environments that are naturally suited for this. And that is how we need to make these ideas available to the common man who perhaps is one of their frustration because they may engage in cultivating crops in areas where the natural environmental conditions cannot support their yields. So there are many variables that we must put in place. And like you talked in terms of coming up with a book or chapters that will be able to educate our people or guide our people, that is just but, the things that I intend to.
Thank you very much. That is very helpful, dear Mr. Ndifon. It has been a pleasure being with you in this conference. Your thoughts have been very concise and wonderful and direct to the point. It is highly appreciated. Do you have a final word to the rising generations of Africa, to the youth of Africa on this subject matter, the subject matter of youth in agriculture, a panacea to Africa's development challenges, of which we know, you and I know, are many? How can youth in agriculture help? If you have a final word, will you share it with us right now?
Once more, the youth of Africa, with all honesty and sincerity, I'm talking here as a youth who have engaged in the farming sector. I'm talking here as a youth who is digging deep and have realized that there is a lot of wealth in agriculture. There's a lot of hope in agriculture. There are a lot of opportunities, if we do invest in agriculture. We should be encouraged. So I'm here to encourage you. Yes, certainly we have the impediment, but we need to be smart. Yes, we need to, revise our systems. We need to look at agriculture as an investment, not like a sector where you are getting in because you have been or you have faced frustration or you have faced failure. No, it's a sector where you engage in with a lot of enthusiasm, objectivity. You engage in the sector with all your might. And if you have a vision, if you can craft a vision for your own self, then you will succeed. So, youth of Africa, the sector is indeed the oxygen of our advancement and the development of us and our societies and our continent. So we cannot let go. We have to involve and invest in the sector. And that is the best that I can say to the youth of Africa with all sincerity.
Thank you very much. Of course, without oxygen, we all die. Oxygen is more important than a backbone, and it's even more important than live blood because blood can be removed and replaced. But if oxygen stops, we die. And agriculture is the key to where we are going. That's what we are thinking at this conference. So, Mr. Ndifon, it has been a pleasure being with you in this conference. Thank you for all the sacrifices and all the time and energy you made to prepare for your discussion with us. Please stand by. The conference is running until Saturday. Join us in the discussions as other people come to the conference. We would like to get questions and comments from our viewers. And viewers, if this is the first time of coming to our YouTube channel, we invite you to leave a comment, to share this program, to also subscribe to our YouTube channel, The African Town Hall. Thank you very much. Do have a good evening, Mr. Ndifon. Thank you for being with us.